Hello and welcome to your daily dose of Satoshi's news. Today's date is Tuesday the 3rd of June 2025, the year BSV comes alive. Branch your threads, expand your mind with treechat.ai or your poster put on chain. Right, let's see what we've got today. Quite a bit to get through, but I'm actually quite looking forward to this because the information is pretty juicy. So we got this one here by Truth Labs, basically exposing Ethereum's large whales. And where Ross Ulbricht's BTC from Silk Road has it been moved by and where to and all this kind of stuff. So we will definitely go through that. The rabbit hole is deep. Jacob King doing a thread here on how he's recognised the BTC as a Ponzi scheme propped up by Tether. Look at that, 109,000 views already. This one as well that we'll touch on. You can now put your property equity into GregCoin. I mean, honestly, it's going absolutely nuts. Touch on this, just about more BS. You know, they're promoting yield farming and all that crap. Shitcoiners going on about how they're loving the hash rate. Some posts here from CSW, some really good ones here, like it said, indeed, the power elite do not act blindly, they calculate. Looking forward to that one. He also said, riddle me this. I think he's beginning to realise that Judge Mellor was well outside of his jurisdiction, ruling from the bench. You know, when there was no jury. A judge is not, you know, a judge, jury, and executioner. He's a judge. He's meant to guide the jury to make a decision. He's got no right to make a decision himself. There was no jury. There wasn't even a criminal trial. You know, and yeah, we said, oh yeah, allegations of forgery and fraud. So we'll go through that. A good one here. This is what is a CBDC for? And again, it sort of ties into what Craig was saying about how the elites want control and they plan. And the guy stumbling through the questions like, what is a CBDC for? What problem is it going to solve? And he's like, I can't answer that one. More from CSW on changing the immutability of GregCoin, you know. Article here by CoinGeek. It says BTC treasuries abound as firms ape sailors' strategy, like aping in. So I doubt we'll probably have time to read all this after we've gone through all the others. We've got some 365 days of Bitcoin history. Today was the day back in 2019 that CSW trolled the BSV community by stating that BSV would be over $1,200 by the end of the year. Oh dear, that was funny. That was funny. And then that will be the end of the show. Right, let's get into it.
Greg says he's Satoshi, like a cowboy in the West, riding on the blockchain that they call the very best. 1 million strong, and transactions flying free. Just wait for the Terra node, you'll surely see.
Here we go. Right, let's get into it then. Truth Labs, boring sleuth, says here, and there's an image here about looking at the flows of BTC into Ethereum and where other BTC has gone. So let's see what he says. Ethereum's largest whales, who purchased the ETH ICO in 2014, used GregCoin sent from Silk Road addresses directly connected to corrupt and convicted FBI agents. Ross Ulbricht's own seized Silk Road address, the Ethereum Foundation's GregCoin address used before their ICO, and the corrupt MyEther wallet developer Cabo setup. The DAO contract was exploited due to the fault code at line 666. Like, would you believe it? I included some of the fund tracing on GregCoin in the image below. In 2025, Ross was released from prison after almost serving a decade behind bars. Yesterday, Ross received 300 BTC donation valued at $31 million. $31 million for just 300 coins. God, $31 million. The untraced BTC that left that corrupt agent's wallets from the Baltimore task force eventually became the main funder for the ETH ICO and washed further into hundreds, if not thousands, of other ICOs occurring on Ethereum since 2015. And this is all the scam coins that all these shitcoiners over on GregCoin going on about. They go, oh, they're going to turn GregCoin into a scam coin. Well, a bit late to the pie because it already is a scam coin. Because it's not Bitcoin, as Grok has admitted. It's difficult to portray the implications of a history that goes so deep. Oof, yeah, it's hugely deep. But that was in response to this one when he said, Vitalik, your ICO and your foundations own BTC wallets, own BTC, as in not owned, but your own BTC wallets, were funded from GregCoin that came from Ross Ulbricht's seized Silk Road wallet address. It was Ross's demise that funded the Ethereum Foundation, no way, and purchased out the majority of your entire ICO. Here's the literal foundation. So this is the literal foundation of your entire empire was founded because Ross went to prison. You knew this BTC was coming, and your ICO raise was going to be successful in January 2014, 7 months prior, because it was the GregCoin that would be used along with Mt. Gox to fund you. No way. Yet you, Vitalik Buterin, let poor people fund movements like Free Ross DAO while sitting on your hands, occasionally tweeting when your entire movement should have been led and entirely funded by you. You're a stain on the word. You're stain on the word integrity, and a snake that of which would make the devil himself proud. Whoa, that is deep. That is deep. And that was in response to Vitalik here saying, I hope you get the freedom you deserve. Life imprisonment for what you did is absurd. Oh, wow. Whoa. Really going at it. So that is amazing. So Vitalik knew that his ICO was foolproof. It sounds to me like Ethereum was just simply another CIA and nefarious three-letter agency creation as an excuse to use Ross Ulbricht's BTC for something. Literally developing one network that could have all these scams on it. Whoa, that is deep. That is deep. That was fascinating. And check this out. Jacob King is basically exposing how thin the ice is that GregCoin is skating on in the entire market, because it's all a massive Ponzi scheme. So he says GregCoin's whole story is a staged illusion scripted by insiders to convince you governments and institutions are all in, and that this market is booming on real demand. Well, we already know that, but I know shitcoiners don't get that. This is the largest bubble in human history, set to go down as the largest financial scandal ever. Ask yourself, if GregCoin is so decentralized and powerful, why do the same few entities control the narrative, the wallets, and the laws? It's all smoke and mirrors. Here's proof. Oh, this is going to be scathing. 1. El Salvador's so-called GregCoin investment was a manufactured illusion. There is no evidence of any purchases, and fresh blockchain data shows that 6,111 of the 6,114 Bitcoin in their treasury wasn't even bought. It was transferred straight from Bitfinex and Tether. Oh, of course they're behind it. Oh, and did I mention Tether also wrote all of El Salvador's big GregCoin bills? Oh my goodness. This isn't national adoption. It's a liquidity laundering scheme dressed up to trick retail into thinking governments are buying, so you should too. No wonder corrupt Bukele embraced it. Tether bribed them out and used them as a vessel. Bukele gets the PR, Bitfinex gets the liquidity, Tether gets to strive another day. And for those that missed it, El Salvador has since walked back its GregCoin legal tender push after the experiment turned into a disaster. The Chivo wallet effectively went bankrupt and shut down, with usage collapsing by 98.9% after launch. Not even Tether and its insider network could prop it up. There was simply no real demand. Absolutely there wasn't. We've been saying this for ages. Number 2, Jack Mallers is part of the inner circle and deeply tied to the Tether Bitfinex machine. His new firm, 21 Capital, claimed it's making massive GregCoin investments, but on-chain data reveals a whopping 14,000 GregCoin over $2 billion came straight from Tether's reserves. Oof! They claim they have so much demand, but the only evidence of anyone ever investing in them is Tether, a company literally found guilty of lying to investors and committing fraud. Very suspicious. It's not an investment. It's internal accounting, just another shell move in a broader liquidity circus. Mallers' other company, Strike, has long had close ties to Tether too. 100% of its payments go through Tether. This isn't innovation, it's consolidation. Yeah. This is scathing. Scathing. 3. Michael Saylor is running the same reflective Ponzi loop. I guarantee Saylor has ties to the same insider ecosystem propping this whole thing up. Strategy, his company, isn't innovating. It's one of the riskiest, most leveraged stocks in the market. They're not investing in GregCoin, they're milking it. The playbook is clear. Raise capital, buy GregCoin, hype up the price, raise more, repeat. It's a circular scheme built on hopium and hype. Saylor's narrative isn't about sound money, it's about keeping the grift alive long enough to extract maximum value before the music stops. That's what I've been saying. That is what I've been saying. Like literally, you know, nobody wants to be holding the bag when the music stops. Oof. 4. Tether and GregCoin are caught in a circular backing loop. Tether supports GregCoin and GregCoin supports Tether. This setup is a ticking time bomb, and again, this is why Jameson Lop and Samson Mao and all the other shitcoiners, literally they're all wearing Tether t-shirts because they know without Tether, GregCoin fails. There is no demand there. At GregCoin 2025, BTC maximalist Seferdine Amus, author of the Bitcoin Standard, finally said what everyone's thinking. He said Tether is quietly accumulating GregCoin, steadily growing its reserves. One day, its GregCoin holdings could surpass its dollar reserves. Then, Tether won't just maintain its peg, it might actually revalue higher. A picture stablecoin worth more than $1 backed by GregCoin instead of treasuries. This mirrors the collapse of Mt. Gox and Lehman Brothers. When liquidity vanishes, the entire house of cards falls. No real asset, just volatile claims propping each other up. Brace for a massive crash. I mean, he's basically explaining what I've been saying is going to happen anyway. Point 5. At the GregCoin 2025 conference, Tether announced it owns over 100,000 GregCoin and more than 50 tons of gold. Sounds sketchy as hell. Here's the play. 1. Tether mints millions out of thin air, buys GregCoin, that freshly printed Tether, to pump prices, sells excess BTC to buy USD and gold as reserves, then parades those reserves to prove legitimacy. Meanwhile, the crowd, i.e. GregCoin maxi sheep, cheers, convinced there's no fraud. Tether truthers have been right all along. Years ago, we called out that Tether was quietly buying GregCoin while they denied it. Now, they can't even hide it anymore. Tether is the only major buyer propping up the entire GregCoin market. Everything depends on their endless printing and buying. This is the ultimate house of cards. Yep, that and the entire rest of the market. The banks are going to come down with literally 500x worth of derivatives they've got. Whoa, it's all coming. Holy shit. 6. Institutional demand for GregCoin is just a fad. On June 2nd, GregCoin spot ETF saw $267.5 million in net outflows, marking 3 days in a row of money leaving. This isn't a one-time thing. It's been going on for months, showing institutions are pulling out fast. Back in late 2021, GregCoin ETF's inflows hit billions at the hype peak. Since then, institutional interest has dropped over 91%. Oof. These steady outflows reflect growing doubts, tighter regulations, volatile markets, and no clear profits. Institutions were supposed to support GregCoin's price, but they're bailing instead. The institutional demand was just hype and FOMO. The smart money is already moving away. That's what Calvin said, yeah. To make it worse, even the new pro-crypto SEC is cautious. They're reportedly hesitating on approving more spot GregCoin ETFs from players like Bitwise and Grayscale, citing weak fraud protections. Oof. This whole GregCoin ecosystem is nothing but smoke and mirrors. The industry is propped up by relentless manipulation. Insiders like Tether and Bitfinex are running a carefully orchestrated show, shuffling coins and liquidity to create the illusion of genuine demand and adoption. They build this powerful brand narrative to sucker in investors, convincing everyone that governments and institutions are all in, when in reality it's just an elaborate pump and prop scheme. If you're paying attention and can see through the noise, it's clear how dangerous this all is. GregCoin's price isn't driven by organic growth or real institutional interest. It's almost entirely fueled by Tether, minting unlimited dollars and buying GregCoin to keep prices artificially high. More than 90% of GregCoin demand flows through these Tether injections. Once stablecoin regulations like those currently being pushed by the Trump administration crack down on this liquidity faucet, then the market will face a brutal reckoning. Oof. GregCoin will inevitably crash well below $100,000 and can easily plunge far under 10k. The so-called institutional demand has evaporated, insiders have been exposed, and the propping up can't last forever. This thread shows how the entire narrative is a manufactured fantasy, a house of cards waiting for the first strong gust of reality to bring it all down at unprecedented speed. Absolutely, that's what I've been saying. Consider yourself warned. This isn't the future of sound money. It's a ticking financial time bomb. Whoa, that is heavy. That is heavy. Couldn't have said that better myself. Like, whoa. Well, but these shitcoiners with shit for brains will never get this. They will never get this. Way beyond them. He continues, so Tether has mysteriously transferred 37,229 GregCoin, valued at nearly $4 billion to Jack Mallers' firm 21 Capital, a day after it launched, after no one was buying. It's become increasingly transparent. Organic demand for GregCoin is non-existent, and Tether is the one big buyer propping up the illusion of market interest. This massive hands-off look less like investment and more like a desperate attempt to fabricate momentum. I mean, this is like similar to Cardano with IOHK being the only miner. It's like Tether being the only purchaser. Literally, everything is a scam. Meanwhile, Mauler is now rolling out a lending service, eerily reminiscent of failed schemes like Celsius and BitConnect. Avoid at all cost, it will go bust. We're witnessing what may be the most elaborate financial fraud in history. Its eventually unraveling will be nothing short of spectacular. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Whoa. Look, people, this guy here looks like he's suffering from cognitive dissonance there. Look, I can't take it seriously, bro. Yeah, alright, mate. He's just explaining to you what the figures show. You know, there's no demand for it. It doesn't do anything. How can there be demand for something that doesn't do anything? If something is useful, it's valuable. If something is useless, it's worthless. Store of value bollocks. Just Ponzi all day. It's crazy. And check this out. I mean, this is how bad it's getting. Joe Consorti said MicroStrategy did it with cash. You can now do it with your house. Horizon lets you relocate tapped equity into GregCoin without monthly payments or new debt. I mean, this is honestly, they've got like pension companies, 401ks. Now they're getting people's debt equity in there. It's literally gonna rob them blind. They want people to lose everything, and the banks like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, they're literally just gonna clean up. But more than anything, they just want to cause chaos and destruction. They want people to lose their homes, which is why they're encouraging this. It's absolutely outrageous. So I've put here, look, you can now put your property equity into GregCoin. Like, what an absolute joke, especially after Jacob King's tweet that we've just been through. That, but shitcoin is shit for brains. Will still do it, and we know it. Bitcoin for corporations said here, just in, AltBG has acquired 624 GregCoin for 60.2 million. But have they? They might have just been transferred from Bitfinex, so we just found out. Look, BTC yield 1,097.6%. Is that year to date? Total holdings 1,471. Europe's first GregCoin treasury company just set a new bar, driving 1,000%. Oh my god! Plus yield through aggressive accumulation and capital strategy. Honestly, when you're seeing figures like this, it's absolutely ridiculous. These figures are absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. And it's literally, it's a massive Ponzi scheme. But shitcoin is shit for brains won't see it, and they're the ones that these guys are trying to get over. But, you know, how mad are they going to go when they get robbed of everything? You know, especially in GregCoin. Like, oof. Tony BSV has said here, this will all roll into BSV at some point. Well, yeah, the hash rate has got nowhere else to go. And it has to go into processing transactions and creating blocks. So all it does is just simply go into winning the block reward at the moment. But, you know, it does nothing. There's no very little... there's no transactions. You're not processing transactions. So the proof of work is a complete waste. You know, literally a complete waste of energy, as the WEF keep pointing out, saying, oh, you know, it's environmentally unfriendly. It's not going to hit any of those environmentally sustainable goals. You know, just trying to shut it down, turn it into proof of stake, add inflation, all that crap. But they're saying new record GregCoin hash rate. So, crikey, what number is that? Billion, trillion, quadrillion, hexillion maybe, 6 billion, 926 billion, something like that. Like, whoa. Right, let's get on to some of CSW's tweets here. Loving this one. So he's awake. He's awake to what's going on. So he said here, indeed, the power elite do not act blindly. They calculate. They do not stumble into control. They engineer it. GregCoin, or Bitcoin in its original form, was never their invention. It was a threat, so they neutered it and branded it the corpse, again, GregCoin, and sold it back to the masses as a symbol of rebellion. How poetic. You ask if wars have been fought over less. History groans under the weight of blood spilled, not for necessity, but for perception of threat, for loss, for control, slipping through gilded fingers. So no, this is not too cynical. It is, if anything, far too polite. If there are good people in the elite using BTC to collapse fiat, then they're fools dressed as revolutionaries, happily using a system that no longer functions as cash, that scales as poorly as their integrity, and that dances on the strings of compliance. The true system, Bitcoin's core, the one that doesn't ask for permission, is already here, and that, of course, is why they fear it, not because it's broken, but because it works. He knows. He knows. Check this out. So this is him having a dig at Judge Mellor. He said, Grok, riddle me this without precavations. When a judge presides over a civil matter, strays beyond the limits of his remit, and begins to opine on questions of criminality, territory reserved strictly for a different jurisdiction, are such gratuitous remarks to be considered part of the judgment proper, or are they extrajudicial musings, judicial graffiti scribbled in the margins, irrelevant to the dispositive essence of the ruling and devoid of authority? Question mark. Tell me then, if a civil judge drapes himself in robes, commenting on criminal guilt, speculating on intent without charge or trial, does that become a binding legal finding, or is it puffery, cloaked a commentary masquerading as law? Answer. Yeah, see, he knows. Let's read the answer that Grok gave. Grok said, here we go. When a civil judge opines on criminal matters, such remarks are not part of the judgment proper. They are obiter dicta, non-binding comments, irrelevant to the case's outcome, as civil and criminal jurisdictions are distinct. Ethical guidelines like the US Code of Conduct for Judges discourages such statements, as they risk undermining the impartiality and public trust. While some argue these remarks could be persuasive, they lack legal authority and are generally seen as inappropriate. Parties may file complaints if they believe such comments constitute misconduct. Absolutely. Misconduct in public office. I'd go as far as malfeasance in public office. Contempt of court, really is what it is. But good to see Craig acknowledging that. And when he goes on about how elites here, there we go. They do not act blindly. They calculate. Well, let's see what they're going to do through this CBDC. Have a listen to this.
I really just have a very simple question. And again, if other colleagues want to answer, anyone who's got the best answer, please. What is the CBDC for? Why? What problem is it going to solve?
Look, what's it for? It's to keep track with the reality of how.
Keep track with the reality. What an absolute loco. It's to keep track of people's spending. What do you mean keep track of the reality? That makes no sense whatsoever. Keep track of the reality. You're deluded, mate.
It's to keep track with the reality of how we'll purchase and save and do our.
What's it got to do with you? That is literally people's private lives that you are infringing on. Absolutely outrageous. Oh, look, it's just to keep track of reality and to see how people spend and save. What's that got to do with you? It's got nothing to do with them.
We'll purchase and save and do our work with our goods.
Work with our goods. What the fuck is he going on about? Work with our goods. It's none of your business what we do with our goods that we buy and sell.
I think your report said that we should proceed with caution. The government is proceeding, I think, with caution. There's a
Struggling for words there.
number of issues around privacy, financial inclusion, whether
Yeah, you don't say.
there's limits, monetary policy and interest, and the consultation is out on that, and you'll hear more about it tomorrow. But this is about being a modern economy that recognises how citizens, want to do business.
How do you know how they want to do business? They want to do business in private.
But that it throws up a number of challenges that you'd want to overcome before you decided to proceed. And we are still in that phase of looking at those challenges.
I'll tell you how I'd like to respond to that. Look, you're talking shit. There we go. End of. And let's get back onto CSW here. This is a great post. So, changing immutability. I think this might have been in response to Grok. The newest darling of linguistic tap dancing. A phrase so oxymoronic it makes civilized anarchy blush and crawl back into the footnotes of postmodernistic drivel. Grok would have us believe that a principle can remain unbroken by being broken elegantly. That a fixed rule still holds if enough hands agree to twist it. The lie isn't even dressed well. It's stark naked, screaming contradiction, hoping its voice drowns out logic. But again, shitcoin and shit for brains won't get this. Immutability, by definition, is the absence of change. It is the refusal to yield to consensus, coercion, or fashion. If a protocol is immutable, it cannot evolve. If it evolves, it was never immutable. To say otherwise is not innovation. It's rhetorical fraud. It's painting a crack in the dam and calling it adaptive resilience. Oscar Wilde might say the cynic knows the price of immutability and the value of pandering. But even Wilde, a connoisseur of paradox, would draw the line at this: the proposition that a thing may change in order to remain unchanged. That is not wit, that is intellectual cowardice, pretending to be diplomacy. Absolutely, he's called him on it there. Balthazar, that savage mystic, would whisper, if the stone moves, it was never a foundation. And Rand would roar, lips curled in contempt, contradictions do not exist. Whenever you think you are facing a contradiction, check your premise. You will find that one of them is wrong. And here the false premise stares at us, glaring, that Bitcoin's protocol can be both unchangeable and adaptively mutable. Grok's sentimental paldem about balancing stability and evolution is the language of the looter, the collectivist, the engineer of decay. It is the velvet glove fist of those who undermine under the guise of persevering. A principle that bends to pressure is not a principle, it's a preference in drag. So let us speak plainly. If SegWit changed a Bitcoin, then the protocol changed. If the protocol changed, then it was not immutable. If immutability is a core principle, then SegWit occurred. Then that principle was violated. There is no poetic cause or economic signalling that can dance this way. What remains then is not Bitcoin as defined by something else, a chimera stitched from delusion and consensus theatre. You can dress it up in all the protocol drag you like, but the stone has moved, the temple has fallen, and the priests now chant contradictions. Absolutely. Let's see what Grok said then. So Bitcoin's immutability is a core principle ensuring a tamper-proof ledger via proof-of-work and node validation. Yet upgrades like SegWit and Taproot show the protocol can adapt through community consensus. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, and we've just heard in the latest one that it's now actually moving ahead without consensus. Like the core devs are just motoring on through without the consensus of everybody. It's hilarious, and they still don't get it. Changing absolute immutability. Non-mining nodes validate transactions, enhancing security, but their consensus role is limited compared to miners who control block creation. The 2017 user-acted soft fork showed nodes can exert economic pressure through risks like Sybil attacks, raise concerns. Bitcoin balances stability with evolution, but this tension fuels debate over whether changes undermine its original design or strengthen its resilience. Oh my goodness me. It's absolutely undermined its original design. Craig has absolutely, totally called grok on it there. Like literally, just shows you that grok is full of BS really. Right, that's a 30-minute show. I don't really want to go on too long then, so maybe we'll come back to this BTC treasuries abound as firms ape Saylor's strategy, basically trying to copy him. Check this out. So on the 3rd of June 2014, Craig Wright appears on CGTN America to provide an expert opinion on how to secure cyber systems, and we've got that right here.
Sharing information so that when
check it out. See, look, Craig knows what he's talking about. Oh, yeah. On the 3rd of June 2015, the New York State releases the BIT license. Superintendent of the New York State Department of Financial Services, Benjamin Lawsky, released a set of customized rules meant to regulate GregCoin and digital currency businesses that serve customers located in the New York State. These regulations are the first ever directly targeted at digital currency businesses. According to the regulations, digital currency companies that serve New York customers must apply for a BIT license within 45 days or be considered in breach of the law. You can't license a crime, so they're breach of the law. It's not really law, it's what's legal. A BIT license application costs $5,000, and the regulations include a number of business requirements, such as fingerprinting employees for FBI, obtaining written approval for all new business activities, and retaining earnings and profits for the company can only be invested in US dollars. In response, the New York-based customers were banned and expunged by a number of GregCoin companies, including Bitfinex, Kraken, BitQuick.co, and Shapeshift. Wow. On the 3rd of June 2019, Craig Wright trolls the BSV community by stating that BSV would be over $1,200 by the end of the year. But could it be over $1,200 by the end of this year? That's the real question. Oh, come on, seriously? Let's have a look. Is the article still there? Hey, there we go. Bitcoin BSV to $1,200. Craig Wright's prophecy almost out of time. This past summer, Craig Wright, a chief proponent of Bitcoin Satoshi Vision blockchain, made a rare end-of-year price call for his favorite crypto asset with just 6 weeks remaining. The realization of Wright's $1,200 BSV prediction for 2019 is looking increasingly doubtful. Investor and entrepreneur Alistair Millen pointed out the ticking clock against Wright's call in the tweet, featuring a screenshot of Wright's original prediction, dated June 3rd, 2019. Yeah, there we go. So that was from the Metanet ICU stack. I do not generally call price, but will be over $1,200 again. That's my target. That's my target. I was like, when the Bitcoin gets to $1,200, I'm just going to use that one from now on. You know, that's what I'm aiming at. $1,200, and for any newbies joining, now you know where I get it from. It cracks me up. That was funny. Great bit of Bitcoin history, that one. Oh, and tomorrow is the date of Executive Order 11110, issued by US President John F. Kennedy on the 4th of June, 1963. The Executive Order amended Executive Order 10289 by delegating to the Secretary of the Treasury the President's authority to issue silver certificates under the Thomas Amendment of the Agricultural Adjustment Act and amended by the Gold Reserve Act. And again, you know, one of the reasons they had to get rid of him. Oh dear. Right, there we go. That is a 34-minute show. I hope you enjoyed it. I quite enjoyed that one. So if you enjoyed these updates, please ding your donations for your appreciation to either Satoshi at Senby.com, Handcash.io, Rockwallet.me, Simply.cash, Related.com, or Senti.ch. We'll leave it there. Hope you enjoyed it. And as ever, be aware, take care, stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the next one.
2 years ago, you got SegWit, which we lied and cheated and stealed, and I was part of the lying and cheating and stealing to get SegWit, to get Lightning, which, by the way, had critical vulnerabilities and lost people's money.
The king still has one more move.